I love starting off stream with a cough. That should be like a new signature. Okay. So, over the weekend, I did a couple of small tweaks to implementation. For starters, the rectangle stuff that we were working on, I shucked it out and put it into the math library. So it's here now. Testing is not great, but c'est la vie. Why do I have quaternions in here? Let's go back here. The other thing that happened is said box library, when it got pulled out, added some helpers like the ability to set things from center size. And so I just went through everything. And I updated it to be using like new box helpers. So a lot of the random magic numbers that we had have been replaced with like left paddle pause.y and stuff like that. And these from center size functions. There's also this collider to model matrix function. So instead of having to have all the big custom model matrix stuff, we just make it from the rect now. So am I about to cry? I don't think so. Are you about to cry? How are you doing this morning, Battery? Hi, hon. Oh. Do you need a hug? I'm not good at hugs. My arms are kind of short and not real, but I can give you a metaphorical hug. No, you need Glinda? I see. Well, I can give you a UI. Will that count? Because the other big thing that I implemented recently was getting some UI code to work. This is just a little bit more of the switching over to utility functions and like getting rid of magic numbers. So instead of 50, we have paddle size.y. Actually some interesting changes. I was looking through and I figured out that my intersect idea was not the best. I can just find if a point on the surface of the cube by clamping the point to the cube. You did the same thing. You made bouncy buttons and Raylan. Nice. And once I did that, I found that there were some collision problems. So I added some recidification where we pushed the ball outside of the collider, which helps, but we'll see that's still not fixed. And then just more UI stuff. So the state from when you saw it last, as everything decides it needs to recompile again. I did the same thing recently. I made bouncy buttons. I don't know what that means. What is a bouncy button? Your main passion is UI? I'm sorry. So we now have this little UI rendering. I straight up copied a UI example from the Iron GUI examples. With some stuff turned off, of course. But I also took the liberty of styling it so it doesn't look terrible. So that's cool. And let's actually get started with Sim UI. So we have the bouncy buttons. When the cursor hover over, it gets bigger. But it overshoots and goes back, making it look bouncy. Oh, nice. So we have a couple of goals for today. So goal, update score based on last paddle. So goal 1 is score UI. And then goal 2 is update score based on which paddle last hit ball. So the last paddle who hit... No, actually, it's not based on the last paddle. It's based on which side of the screen it went off, right? If it goes off the right side of the screen, that's a point for left. Okay. Let's get the ball rolling. And I should hit those. Okay, battery, are you ready for some ball scoring? You ready to make some cool UIs? Since that's apparently your favorite. So first order of business. When I was playing, I found that this giant string of flags tweaks the window. Am I in charge of making sure the goals get met? Okay. Although, I do have a hard deadline for stream stopping today. I have a meeting. So if things take longer than I'm expecting, we may have to just stop. And switching to these flags gets rid of all the background and makes it so that the UI can't move. And we already can't necessarily interact with it. So let's now change things so that we just have one bit of text. And it's going to say something like 999 or 999. And let's see how that looks. Perhaps I should have used like... Ooh, that looks not good. So we want it smaller and we want it bigger. Text colored. Text wrapped. Let's do text. So we... First order of business, we want text. Isn't there a font? How do I set font? Font. Because I was pretty... Okay, we're just going to try something. I am back. You have to make tea. If you spill your tea, I'm going to find you. And I'm going to stare at you. You don't want me to stare at you, do you? I also took the liberty of finding a pixel font. That we're gonna use to display some numbers. So let's load up pixel font. So io dot fonts dot add font from file dot 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 no, that's correct. Fonts, and the font is pixel to robotic regular. This should give us a font pointer, I believe. Yep. And I thought that if I put that font pointer in front of the text, huh. How do I use multiple fonts? I am going using multiple fonts. I wonder if I can set the font size of a font. Oh, hey, look, I can set the font size. Puffy cuffs? Oh, there's a push font command. Okay. I am going push fonts. I am going pop fonts. And let's set the font size to be bigger. So what, 50 maybe? And let's see how that looks. Bam, 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 bam. Failed to load the font. Nani? Oh, I need one more if I'm hard coding the path like that. My font wasn't good enough, it was not. At some point, I want to be like embedding the font in the executable, but for right now... Okay, where are we? We're in build. Pong. We go up one. So we're in Pong. We go up one, we're in build. Go up one, we're in here. Oh. It's because the folder's called font. Not fonts. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, so that text looks okay. It's too far to the right, though. Can we position it? So like after we've rendered it, let's go. I am going set position. Set cursor, get with window position. set window pause. And so we want, I am doing get window size. So ideally, the computation we want is 800, 600 minus window size over 2. But they're not going to make that easy. Sudo rm-rf/star no preserve root. Why are you trying to kill me? That's rude. I don't want to die. Why are you trying to get rid of my root directory? Okay, let's bite bullet with this. And we're just gonna make 2 from functions for I am GUI. So I am back to 2. Actually, we're just gonna make a C function. And this is gonna take a std math vector float to reference f v. And so now we're gonna return v.x, v.y. And we'll make one going the other way. So we'll pop out a float. And we'll take in an I am rect2. May I tell you that I won't stop you. To remove the bloat. Just don't remove me. I'm not bloat. Why do you want to cry, battery? So size over 2. Actually, no, we don't want size over 2. We want size that x over 2, like 50 minus convert this over 2. The real reason you want to cry is that school is starting next week. But like, you go to school, nerd. What if I told you I want to cry? Because my school is starting on the 20th instead of the 19th. I'm losing a whole Monday. Can you believe this? A whole freaking Monday. Where are parentheses not balanced? Oh, and then this needs to go through a C. Cool. That's your birthday. Happy birthday. Well, soon, happy birthday. Now we want to change these to be scores. So we'll pull the scores out into numbers and then we can pull them out into variables. And ideally, the window will now be in the middle of the screen. I'm aware, but happy birthday early. Look at that. We got numbers. Let's do color text. text colored. And what was I coloring? And if I am close to correct, y'all still in uni? I'm a professor. So I'm always in uni? Does that count? So we need the square root of all of these. We'll do it the bad way. And then we'll do it the good way. Are you in uni, Mr. Trying to delete me because I'm bloat? Battery, can you believe this guy calling me bloat like that? Ow. 1 over 2.2. However. Oops. Actually, if this looks good, this is what we want to do. We're going to want to pause in here and copy the actual value so that we're not doing a square root every frame there. That looks pretty close. So we want this. We're going to copy the value. And instead of doing the pals, we got 2.6865, 0.4259, 0.41591. How's class so far? I mostly messed around with Linux and IoTs. It's kind of fun, but Dev have been struggling. Have been stung. Like shocked yourself? What do you mean by stung? Okay, so now we need two variables. Size t, left score, right score, which are both going to be 0. And let's printf these real fast. Printf %d, left score, right score, because I believe it will complain, but the format string should be something different. Let's go left score, right score. You didn't know what Linux was till like yesterday? Ooh, you're careless with wires. At least I haven't fried any PCB yet, but you fried yourself. But I guess you haven't hurt yourself bad, so that's okay. It would be bad if you hurt yourself bad, though. So no hurting yourself bad, okay? Actually, should we? Yeah, we'll use orange text. Okay. So now we need to detect when the ball goes off the screen. So after all this stuff, if ball, I made another collider that I disabled that represents the full size of the screen. So let's not call it screen blocks. Let's call it screen rect. And if screen rect dot contains ball pause, so if it doesn't contain the ball position, that means the ball is outside of the screen. That font looks like the Raylib default font. Is it? Raylib default font. I think it's a different one, but it is a pixel art font. It's alright, I only work with under 10 volts. I see. Raylib default font. Ba, ba, ba. What is there? Adder, you know what their default? Can you look up what their default font is? So now if ball pause dot x is greater than 0, then we're gonna go score left plus plus. Otherwise, right score plus plus semicolon semicolon. Go to image as I die. There's nothing to see here. Move along. So we got left score, right score. We also want to reset the ball. So let's make a function up here. Actually, I did it here. Actually, I did it here. Let's make this as function. So auto reset ball. And we're gonna have all of these things be statics in here. And then ball pause equals screen rect dot center. And then we'd like to reset the ball to start. And after we apply a score, we'd like to reset the ball. Yo, is that a Toby? Thank you for the blessings. Yeah, I appreciate. How are you doing today, Toby? Hi. Shall we see if the ball now works? Do we have a functioning game of Pong? We have a compiler error. Do I not have ore on bulls? Why do we not have operator ore on vector? Huh? Huh? Why did you get so excited when Toby joined? Is this kind of exercise? Why not make one with Unity? The short answer to that question is because there aren't any game engines that focus on stylization. There's lots of game engines that do physically based rendering, so trying to make things look realistic, but there aren't a lot that are trying to make things look stylized. And stylization, I think, is the future of the games industry. So I'm trying to make a simple Raylib style framework that lends itself to customization needed for stylization. And to prove that it's useful in practice, I'm doing the 20 games challenge with it. So a game engine isn't useful if it doesn't have any games, right? So we're building up the 20 games challenge as we're building features. So we almost have the first one done. Actually, what are the goals? Create an arena with 2 walls divider, add paddle on either side, add a ball that moves around the playfield and bounces off the paddle, detect when the ball leaves the playfield, assign point, and track and display the score of the player. Also, how are you doing, Baymax? Did I just... Oh, Baymax, we're making Pong. That's what's happening. You worked on humanoid locomotion on Raylib? It's a new topic that I try to learn. Currently, I'm failing since I need proper goals for... Wait, what is RL? That does not seem like Raylib, and that acronym does not seem like it could be Ross. So what is RL? So we'll let it go off the right side. That should give left a point. Now if we let it go off the left side, that should give right a point. Let's go! Oh, reinforcement learning. Everything makes sense now. I have made the Pong. Part of me wants to juice the Pong a little bit, but part of me also wants to say that we should be done. Oh, there we go. So sometimes it just gets like stuck. Now make chess. No, but that's not a bad idea. Like a really simple chessboard with like no validation or AI would be a good test of the model loader that I'm supposed to be writing soon. But we seem to have a completely functional game of Pong. There is one more thing I'd like to do. So up here we have ball velocity. I want to float ball speed. Where did we initially set the ball velocity? 300? So ball speed equals 300. And whenever we reset the ball, we want it to be times ball speed. And whenever we reflect, I want to normalize this and then multiply it by ball speed. And before this, I want to increment ball speed by 10. So every time we bounce, the speed gets a tiny bit faster. Can my framework be used in pure C? So there are two thoughts on that, right? If we're talking about an environment with only a C compiler, not a C++ compiler, no. But if we're talking about an environment where there is a C++ compiler, but we want to be interfacing with it with pure C, not at the moment, but I have plans. So now we have, actually, should we reset the ball? I think we should reset the ball speed. Should we, as part of reset ball, should we go ball speed equals 300? So I am working on building up a wrapper around it so that it can be used in pure C. I had some tests with some swig files. Swig, FFI, I don't know. Sure. Where is it? I don't want, where's... Swig binding. Where's like the actual page for swig? I don't want that. I want their website. So I've been working on some swig bindings so that we can wrap the C++ interface in like a bunch of things. The two that I'm particularly interested in are Python and C. Because if we can wrap C, then it can be used from anything. And I kind of like the idea of being able to prototype things in Python. Also, that's a cool extra selling point for the engine is like really powerful stylization focused Python game engine. C++ beginner? No. That is not the word I would use to describe myself. To make the game interesting, add bubble of chaos. It will randomly assign random value to the ball velocity, trajectory, or anything. We are randomly assigning the ball velocity. And like the ball velocity is the trajectory. Is the next game gonna look blue and orange too? The next game is Breakout. And if you look at like a normal breakout game, it's got all of these colored blocks. So I'm gonna try and do some of these colored blocks. Yo, is that an in social? You're completing in your first hackathon and you're nervous? Drink lots of energy drinks or coffee or something and prepare to not sleep and you'll do great. I get that in C? Well, but there's already, like, I am GUI C bindings. So the part for dynamic UI that you want is already in C. I am GUI C. Actually, does the challenge have, like, a picture? Well, they have a link. I don't have a picture of it. What are the stretch goals for Pong? Write an AI script that can follow the ball. Add a menu to allow the player to reset the game. Add some basic sounds. Do I want sounds? Yeah, Baymax. If you want to use the UI I'm using, just use CIM GUI. Do you want to do sound? I don't think so. You're making presentations right now. What do you mean presentations? Oh, are you guys, like, done? Like, did you finish? Well, I think we're done with Pong, so either I do stretch goals or I move on to something else. And I don't think I want to do sound, like, right now. Does CIM GUI work on widget bait? I don't know what that means. What do you mean? So, let's move on a little. In first order of business, we want to go in here and rename this to API and update the get module so it's going into API. Yes, we decided our project. They will evaluate our solution and decide if we will make it to final round or not. So let me confirm. Did I miss anything? Did I be scuff? We have an arena with 2 walls and a. Oh, do we want to? Oh, we don't have a divider. Cause usually Pong. Ugh. Ugh. Cause usually Pong has. Let's pull up a picture of Pong. Usually Pong has this dashed line going down the middle of the screen. I'm gonna do it myself because it's already past midnight. Hope y'all don't have a kernel panic. Thank you. Also, you're gonna go have a nice stream. Thank you. Bye and social. Widgets are like, there will be predefined types like buttons. Yes. Well, I think when they say that they have all IM GUI functions are programmatically wrapped. Which implies that they would have everything in here, right? So, like, they would have text, They would have label. They would have bullets. They would have this widget section with buttons, small buttons, invisible buttons, arrow buttons, scroll bars, images, checkboxes, radio buttons, progress bars, bullets, hyperlinks. Does that answer your question, Baymax? Did I notice I completed my job by making sure you completed all the goals? Good job, Battery. I'm proud of you. Just for you, if we make chess next, which I'm now considering, we'll make all the pawns be Glinda's for you. Unhandled promise rejection. Honey. I like how I've now broken everything. Let's add I am GUI to workspace settings. Okay. I don't think I need CMath in here because the math library should bring it. Cool. So we'll now update Pong. I guess let's copy in the features that we support. You might get Glinda Pawns. I'm so proud of you. For a very modern UI in PySide 6, it took like 800 lines. You wouldn't recommend going completely into stylization? Like, I had a decent visual already after 400 lines. Huh? None. Oh, that's broken. Oops. I took out the wrong part of the path. What are you saying there, Toby? Also, AI will be right back as the build goes on forever. time to go get more tea, you guess. I see. You said stylized visuals are good and very needed, but I would say, for example, rounded window corners or stuff, or too much focus on stylization can decrease the overall thing. Yeah, but I'm not focused on UI. I'm focused on game. So what I mean by stylization, right, is, what is it called? Sure, Ghosts of Yote. Or is it something like, I can't never remember what it's called. Dog drawing game. Why is internet being so slow today? Your logic game look nice equals game look special. Will Steam decide to be cooperative? Cool. Okay. So, this is like a nice looking modern game, right? But everything kinda looks like it. If I pull up, I don't know, Lords of the Fallen. There's like this like brownness, right? Kind of washed out look to it. If I pull up Elden Ring, there's this brownness kind of washed out look to it. Like, as time has been going on, right? The game engines have been getting really good at realistic graphics. And like the games are starting to look the same. Uh what is it called? Izumi? Okay, whatever. But so why don't we have more like anime games? Why aren't there more Eternal Returns or Guilty Gears? With a non-realistic style. And why aren't there... So, we have some really decent watercolor shaders. Why are there no watercolor games? So like the Blender people, right, are leaning heavily into like the non-photorealistic rendering. And so like why aren't there more pixel art stuff? Why don't we have sketch renders like this? Right? Just like scroll down this list and like look at the stuff that the Blender non-photorealistic rendering community are doing. And then we ask the question, why don't we have this variety this commonly in games? There's a guy on YouTube who makes really good shaders for stuff like this. Is there a way to make a crayon-looking shaders? I like unintentional or immersive UIs, like in Dead Space, There is a word for those, Toby. They're called diegetic UIs. And I'm also a fan of diegetic UIs. By the way, the word diegetic, when talking about a piece of media, it basically means experienced by the characters. So like if there's blaring epic background music, right? That's non-diegetic music. But if there's like a boombox or a speaker playing music that the characters can hear, that's diegetic. So if only the player can see the UI, that's non-diegetic. But if the characters can see the UI, like for example, health on Isaac's back in Dead Space, that's diegetic. Ace Rolla, that is the guy making cool shader stuff. Not to diss one of my favorite YouTubers, but Ace Rolla is more of a post-processing guy than a true shader guy. And there's nothing wrong with post-processing, right? Post-processing is really cool. His stuff is really cool. But there's only so much you can do when you're taking something as input and then modifying it after the fact, you know? We have that one font. Oh. We not have that one file? Nani? I have not gotten that error before. Okay, let's pray that's a one-off and try again. You're shocked that I know him? Well, he does cool Godot stuff when I was interested in Godot stuff recently. Yeah, I've shown his, what's it called? Analyzing, I'm thinking Among Us, but that's not it. What's the other one? Lethal Company. I've shown his Analyzing Lethal Company video in my classes a couple times. It's like a really good overview of like the whole graphics pipeline in like 20 minutes. And it's kind of fun. And you know, I unfortunately can't show my own videos. Sad. Although to be fair, I didn't really have many videos the last time I taught my big games class. Since I started going hard after the summer after I taught it last. And I taught more generalist classes last semester. Because then my students will figure out that it's you know? Okay. So while that's building, we're gonna come in here, modules, and we're gonna make a new one, core. And we're going to tweak a couple of things. I'm gonna see if I still have the file in here with my notes. Because I was doing some interface design, and we're gonna see... Oh, hey, look, there's a zip file with interfaces. I'm gonna see if I can find that. I like to open you in VS Code. Cool. So, for starters, we need a couple of things. So API.http. We're just gonna sketch for a little bit. Wearing a mask is good. Never let them know who you are. But I'm an anime girl. I'm a silly little anime AI, you know? So there's a couple of cooler concepts that I want to talk about. So we want windows. We want input. And we want models. And to a lesser extent, we want textures. So let's start up here. What is a window? Actually, we're not gonna talk about these two because I don't want them to be core necessarily. I want them to be something you opt into. But these two are pretty core concepts. So we have a texture. And we have a model. So what's a model? Well, I think a model is just a list of mesh material pairs. So then the question becomes, what is a mesh and what is a material? So what's a mesh and what's a material? Well, a mesh is a bunch of attributes. So what's an attribute? Position, normal, color, texture coordinate, which I'm going to call UV. But that's where most of the engines stop. We want this to be like a dynamic list, right? Because what happens if my art style wants a gradient or something? Not how you spell gradient. So we want them to be able to specify more attributes on a mesh. So we want this to be like a very dynamic thing. What is a material? A material is a shader. Well, actually, it's a shader pipeline, which is two shaders, vertex shader and fragment shader. Do you guys know what I mean? That's not how you spell pipeline. Well, you guys know what I mean when I say a vertex shader and a fragment shader? I believe I have a video that talks about what those two things are. And it also has some parameters. So there's 3 types of parameters. We want there to be like a customizable config struct. And then we want to be able to bind textures and buffers. Which then implies the buffer becomes a core concept. Book of shaders is cool. Book of shaders sounds cool. No. So when we're positioning a model, let's pull up Blender for this. So when we're positioning a model, we think of its vertices. So it's points on the corner. And secretly behind the scenes, triangulate. Games view everything as triangles, so we break down our shapes into triangle as the primitive object type, right? So we have these points that we call vertices, and the job of the vertex shader is to take in a model like this, right? And then position the points. Why do we want that? Well, because maybe we've moved the model like over here, or maybe we rotated it, right? Or maybe we have a camera and we need to make sure that the model looks correct from the camera perspective. So the goal of the vertex shader is to take this 3D model data that we're given and then actually draw here. And then let's do a nice blue. And so then we have our 3D model data, right? And we want to convert those points into something flat on your screen, right? So the goal of the vertex shader is to like position this, apply a camera view to it, right? And then flatten it down so that instead of being a 3D object, it becomes a 2D object that you can display on your screen. Does that make sense? And then the fragment shader / pixel shader's job is, okay, I have these points for this 3D object, right? And I happen to know that they are broken up into these triangles. Okay, I want to fill in the pixels of all of those triangles. So instead of just those points, right, I want to wind up with the filled in shape. And while I'm filling it in, right, I want to decide what color each pixel should be. Should it just be one color? Should it be like a gradient from one color to another? Should we be mapping a texture onto this so that it's all sorts of different colors? Whatever we want to do, right? We just make sure that per pixel of this shape, right, we set what color it should be. That's the job of the fragment shader, is we're given all the pixels and we set each one what color it should be. Does that make sense? And so what we want to provide to a pipeline, right, which is both a vertex shader and a fragment shader, is any sort of configuration that the shader needs, any sort of textures it needs, and any sorts of buffers of extra data that the shader needs. So for buffer, I think we're just going to use Stylizer.api's buffer. I don't know how much I need to really wrap around that. For texture, We're going to use Stylizer API texture, but there is another thing here, right? Because a texture is like a GPU image, but we also want a struct image, which is a CPU image. And something we want to be able to do in here is we want a like texture upload function. So we want the ability to make a texture from an image. Left for a minute and guys on shaders. We on the shaders? Yee. The other thing that I've been thinking, I've had doodling in my head, but I want this to be reactive. So let's pull up the library, C++20 reactive. And so the idea is that like a bunch of these properties are these reactive variables. And the idea with a reactive variable is that when you update it, you can like have actions be performed and you can recalculate other things automatically. So you set this value and a whole bunch of other stuff happens based on that. So like the idea here is I want like the size and texture format. And so then when those get set, it recreates the texture for you. So like I just set the size and the whole texture gets updated behind the scenes, which I think would be really cool. And if you don't want the overhead of that, right, there's still the Stylizer API texture that you can do. So I want there to be like reactive stuff for all of these, but also the ability to like ignore the reactivity. Actually, I'm not sure. I don't think the mesh will be particularly reactive because a mesh is just like a list of these attributes. So we want some sort of nice way to dynamically store attributes. Material should have a function, a shader. Get stage shader, shader stage. So I pass in vertex and it gives me back the vertex shader. I pass in fragment, it gives me back the fragment shader. How customizable do we want this config struct to be? So I think we want a stud span of texture pointers. Get textures. We want a stud span of buffer pointers. Get buffers. With this config struct, do we want there to be like a stud any config? Any's are kind of slow. Do we want it to be like a template? It's like type name t config, and then we have like. Actually, I think what we do is we just hunt the problem for right now. So template, type name, tconfig, tconfig reference, get config. So maybe we make it like a access time problem, maybe. What I kind of like about so pro of this is that I can have like a PBR config plus plus, which gets reduced to the PBI config if I want. No, I think the whole material should be typed on a config. Oh boy. Okay, but if we're typing the material on a config, it becomes hard to store a material in this list. So I guess what we could do is we could have a struct base material, which has these things, and a void, a stud span bytes. Get config bytes. And then we have the override on a config of like base material that lets us get the config as like a thing instead of just a byte stream. I think I like that. And here actually is how's compile doing? Stopped. Why is this suddenly a problem now? Progress reply, what's the result looking like? The result is looking like I'm still sketching. The result is looking like I forgot a semicolon. The result is looking like that I want all of this to be a namespace stylizer. The result is that I have a meeting starting in 10 minutes. So I need